Hello. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. See, today, admit all, many of them. Yes, admit. All are joining with 2 minutes. Huh?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning, all of you.
Good morning, ma'am.
Okay.
Good
Okay,
morning,
good
madam.
morning, ma'am.
Okay. See, yesterday I did with Land Revenue Act. Today, that important act is Karnataka Land Reforms Act of 1961. Here in Karnataka Land Reforms Act of 1961, many of the times there was an amendment to this particular act. And then here when we are speaking about this land reforms, why Land Reforms Act was being passed in the year 1961? See, land reforms usually refers to redistribution of land from rich to poor. So then land reforms also includes regulation of ownership and operation. See, when we take up a country like India, the main occupation of the Indians was agriculture. So 75% of people depended on agriculture, and agriculture was the backbone of the Indians. And then because of which there were many poor peasants who did not own agriculture lands. So state-wise act was being passed, land reforms, means changes were being brought, like who can hold property and the ceiling limit was being fixed, like how much a person can hold property, agriculture property. So now here every state has its own land reforms act. And then it was in Karnataka Land Reforms Act of 1961 was being passed. So the main purpose is a redistribution of land from rich to poor. And then land reforms also includes regulation of ownership, operation, leasing, sales, and inheritance of land. So indeed, the redistribution of land itself requires legal changes. So the main object of passing Land Reforms Act is to see that there is a solicited pattern of society, means efforts were being made to reduce inequalities in ownership of land. Means how is a country in India, the rich are becoming richer and the poor are remaining the poorer. So to stop this act was being passed. So the much efforts were being made to reduce inequalities in ownership to land, and also to see that there is a land ceiling limit which is being implemented. So the surplus land, if any person was holding a surplus land, that had to be redistributed among small and the marginal farmers. So the main importance of this particular act is Land Reforms Act. It alters the power structure both economically and politically, since land was always considered a source of income, status, and power, especially in India. So it actually the tillers of the soil, they organizers, they were holding the land. So this act was being passed to see that there is no inequalities in ownership of land. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
So this Land Reforms Act, which was being passed in the year 1961, the main object was to see that there is regulation of ownership and operation, and to see that this thing, every person, that is marginal farmers also own land. The surplus land was taken by the landowners, and it was being distributed, because in India it was always a prestige to hold land, because it was a source of wealth to the people. So this under Land Reforms Act, we have got five concepts. One, general provisions relating to tenancy. Second, we have got conferment of ownership on tenants. Third, we have ceilings on land holdings. Fourth, restriction on holding, transfer of agriculture lands. Then fifth, cooperative farms. So here when we speak about the ceiling limit, now there were different classes of people, that is A class, B class, C class and D class. So accordingly it was being calculated how much a person can hold land under Land Reforms Act. So this Land Reforms Act, so here this Act 1961 Act was being amended in 2020. The bill is being pending, and latest it was being approved in the legislation in the March, in this March 2020, wherein Land Reforms Amendment Bill was being passed in the year 1920, and it is being approved in the legislation in the March. So we have got section 109 of Land Reforms Act, which facilitate industry to purchase land directly from farmers. So initially what happened is the industrialists were not allowed to purchase land from the farmers. So in this amendment bill on this, there was an amendment to section 109 which says the industries can directly purchase land from the farmers. So this Karnataka implementations amendment Land Reforms Act of 1961, it allowed the industries to buy directly land from the farmers, and then industries could go ahead and they, with the application given by the 30 days, they had to they could buy land properly. Then from 1961 up to 2020, this act has this act has various time it has gone amendment. So it was in the year 1961, the person owning up to property means thing, there was a limitation how who could own lands. So if his annual income was up to 2 lakh rupees, he could own land. There was an amendment in 2015, then it was said more than 2 lakhs but less than 25 lakhs. Then in 2019 again there was more implementations, the ceiling was increased, but in 2020 it facilitated, it was being approved, and it says the all people can purchase land, but provided they should be equal distribution of land in India. So this act, where we say Karnataka Land Reforms Act of 1961, an act to this act was being enacted to bring uniform law relating to land reforms in the state of Karnataka, and this act is applicable only to the state of Karnataka in relating to agrarian relations, means people who are into agriculture. Then here we speak about conferment of ownership on tenants, ceilings on land holdings, and for other certain matters. So this act shall be called as Karnataka State Land Reforms Act. And then section 3, general provisions relating to tenancy. So when we speak about general provisions relating to tenancy, extension of transfer of property to agriculture land in Gulbarga area, and application of chapter 5 to the act of tenancy. So in the state of Karnataka, we have got different districts wherein special provision is taken to see that uniformity of agriculture land is being distributed, and who shall be deemed to be the tenant. So persons to be deemed to be tenant are a person lawfully cultivating any land belonging to another. See, it's a definition of a tenant. I am not cultivating my land, but I am cultivating another person's land. So then I will be called as a tenant. So section 4, it says a person lawfully cultivating any land belonging to other person shall be deemed to be tenant, and such land is not cultivated personally as an owner. If I cultivate my land, I am a owner, I cannot be a tenant. If I cultivate the land of another, then I become a tenant. So if a person is a member of the family, one's own family, he cannot be called as a tenant. So here what it says, any person lawfully cultivating the land belonging to another person shall be deemed to be called as tenant. And if such person is not a member of the owner's family, a servant, hired laborer on wages for cash or kind, but in crop, but he should not be the owner's family. Say first, that person should not be the member of the family. Secondly, even if that person is a member of the family, he is being hired, he is being given wages, he is being given crop, he is being given something of a kind, then he cannot be called as a tenant. So if there is any relation, he is a family member, even if the family member is being paid, he cannot be called as a tenant. Then provided it says an application has to be made by the owner within 1 year from the appointed day to the tribunal that such person is not a tenant, and then the tribunal will make a declaration whether that person is a tenant or not. So section 5 speaks about prohibition of lease. So what is a lease? Initially we used to have 99 years lease, but now we do not have lease. So it says, when we are speaking about this thing here, on the condition after the Amendment Act, what it says now, condition once a tenancy is being created, and then that person only has to be he has to be plowing that land, using that land. Yes, anybody has any questions here? Yes, am I audible? Saima, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Some
Yes, ma'am.
disturbance.
Yes, ma'am.
There was some disturbance.
Yeah.
Okay. So prohibition of lease is there. Then termination of tenancy. So termination of tenancy means before the expiry of the said period, the tenancy cannot be expired. So when any person is being put in possession of the tenancy, there is a specific duration as per the agreement. So before that agreement, a person cannot be terminated. Then restoration of possession to tenants. So the same person can be put into possession again after the expiry of the said period, and this thing, the after the expiry of the said period, the tenancy period will be over. If at all required, the same person can be put into possession. So what is rent under Land Reforms Act? So section 8 says the rent has to be payable on any land by the tenant because he is cultivating the land, and every annually he is paying to the landlord. And then such rent shall be aggregate of 10 times the land revenue and 10 times the water rate in respect of the land. Means what it happens is, now we have got 3 classes of land: A class, B class, 3 class. So what will be the revenue, what will be the rent which a tenant is being paying? So initially it was in 1961, now there are changes. But in 61, A class people had to pay 16 rupees 50 paisa per acre. Then in B class, they had to pay 11 rupees per acre. C class had to pay 5 rupees 50 paisa per acre. So this amendment has been taken place, and depending on the class of land, the tenant is paying the rent to the landlord every annually. Suppose if there is any dispute as regarding rent, so where the landlord has not received any rent from the tenant, then, or if there is any other provision as per agreement, directly if the tenant cannot give money to the landlord, through the postal this thing he can send it to the tenant. Or when there is a dispute between the landlord and tenant regarding rent, and here the matters will be settled before the revenue officer. So in that particular village, taluka, that money can be deposited before the tahsildar till the dispute is being settled between the landlords and the tenants. So then we have got section 10, rights and liabilities of the landlord. So the landlord, once he gives a possession to the tenant as per the agreement, he has to see that he will not disturb the working of the tenant. So the tenant is liable to pay land revenue to the tenant accordingly. Then we have got second consideration now, section 22, which is important: eviction of tenant for default. So what is a default? As per agreement, if the tenant violates the rules and regulations, the tenant can be evicted from the landlord. So under what conditions the tenant can be evicted for default? First, the tenant has failed to pay the rent on such land before the due date during 2 consecutive years. Means for 2 years he has not paid rent annually. Neither he has sent any letter, any notice to the landlord regarding his failure to pay the rent. Secondly, the tenant has permanently caused injury to the land. So, when the permanently has caused injury to the land, he can be evicted. Where the tenant has sublet the land to some other person, which he cannot do. So, no tenant can sublet the land to some other person. And third, the tenant has failed to cultivate the land personally for 2 consecutive years. He has, as per agreement, he has agreed to cultivate the land, but for 2 consecutive years, he has not cultivated the land. Or the tenant has used the land for some other purpose other than the agriculture. So, if on these 5 conditions, the tenant can be evicted by the landlord under section 22 of this act. Then here we have got another thing wherein the most repeated question is being asked. It is this thing, conformity of ownership on tenants. So section 44 is a very important. What is this conformity? Conformity means now who is a landlord, who is a tenant, that certificate of for presumptions will be there. So the owner will always be having the certificate of ownership, and as per agreement, the tenant will also be having a certificate of tenancy. Then all the land which is being held in the possession of the tenants, including the tenants, they should have certificate, presumption that they are cultivating the land, whether what is a lease period and for how many years these tenants are occupying the land. So all the rights, all the titles of the owners will be given to the tenant for a specific period of time, and they will be cultivating the land. So all the arrears of the land revenue, cess, water charges, dues, everything will be paid by the tenant as per the agreement. So the tenant has to maintain the land which is being leased to him, and that is a main condition. Then the tenants have to be registered as occupants of the land on certain condition. Now we have got certain consideration. Now, who are the tenants? So when we come to the tenant, a tenant is a person who is cultivating the land of the landlord. Now we also call them as occupants. Who is an occupant? An occupant is a person who is in possession of the land, who has occupied the land. So this particular section, section 45, says that if every person who was a permanent tenant, protected tenant, or other tenant, if he has lawfully sublet the this thing, he has sublet the tenant, then what will happen? He will be called as an occupant of the land. So this occupant of the land will be holding the land as a tenant for a specific period of time, and he is holding and he is cultivating the land personally, and he is personally taking care of the land, and he will not sublet the tenant or sublet the land or misuse the land. So when the tenant, he is entitled to choose the land, he has a right to choose the land, because we speak about 4 classes of land: dry land, wet land, plantation land, and the garden land. So depending on the land, what happens? He will be in the occupation of the land. Then here we have got a D class land. So what is this D class land? Now D class land is if the landlord is, he is a small holder of the land, he is a minor, he is a she is a widow, or a woman who has never been married, a person who is subject to physical or mental disability, or if that person is a soldier or a seaman whose land is in the state government, and this thing. So on such tenant, what happens is the amount which will be payable to the government. So if the tenant in respect of the land is a permanent tenant for many years, for this thing for many years is in the possession of the land, and then he is in the possession of D class land. So D class land is if the landlord is a small holder of the land, minor, widow, all these conditions will apply. He will be paying 20 times the net annual income of the land. So what is 20 times annual income of the time? Say every year there is an agreement between the landlord and the tenant. May 50, say 50 bags of rice is being grown every year. So as per the condition, what happens? Maybe 10 will be given to the landlord, 40 will be kept by the tenant. So as per the agreement between the landlord and the tenant, that will be the amount which will be payable. So to deal with the matters, we have got the constitution of the tribunal. Now this constitution of the tribunal, this tribunal will be at the taluka level. And then here we have got the officer is Assistant Commissioner of Revenue, subdivision, that is jurisdiction he will be having as a taluka. And then 4 other peoples are nominated by the state government to look into the matters of the land tribunal. And this Assistant Commissioner itself, he will be the chairperson, and the 4 members, another 4 members who are being nominated will be the members. So the quorum to constitute a tribunal are 5 members. So all these 5 members will be dealing the matters if at all there is any dispute relating to land reforms matter. And inquiry is being conducted by the tribunal. So before the expiry of the period of 6 months, the things will be, inquiry will be conducted and the matter will be, one matter will be settled. So
240 आता.
then coming to the next concept we have got is, then most repeated question which is being asked is ceiling on land holdings. You have any questions here? Do you have any questions? Yes, Saima. Shehbaz, do you have any questions here?
No, ma'am.
Shall I continue this thing? Because it's the most repeated question which is being asked. That is
Yes,
ceiling on land holdings. So the main purpose of passing Karnataka Land Reforms Act of 1961 is to bring ceiling. Yes.
Ma'am, ma'am, actually section 45, no ma'am, they say tenants to be registered as occupants. Ma'am, when this tenant has a sublet, okay, that is a subtenancy. Okay, at that point of time, ma'am, that subtenant becomes occupant or the tenant becomes occupant?
Tenant becomes occupant. See, now you have got permanent tenant. Under some conditions, now you have got tenants can be evicted for 5 defaults. Now, which are the 5 defaults? If he sublets the tenant, okay, he can be evicted from the land. Now, if there is an understanding between the landlord and the tenant that a part of the land will be sublet, okay, it's just like you have taken a room on rent. You are alone, allowed to stay, but you cannot hire somebody there. Say your friend is also there and you are taking money from the friend. And so that becomes sublet. So even on the agriculture land, sublet is not allowed. But if at all, if there are 2 adjoining lands and 2 brothers only are cultivating the land, but the tenant is the occupant, who is one elder brother, the younger brother is subletting, it is with the permission, then who becomes the occupant? The elder brother becomes the occupant, because it is in his name. That should be with the permission, or else with the permission of the landlord. Without the permission of the landlord, it is being done, it is illegal. Okay. And he can be evicted on those particular grounds within the expiry of the period. There is a notice has to be given. So within the expiry of the period, he will be evicted. Yes. Anybody else? Okay, I'll continue. Kiran, you have any questions?
No, madam.
Okay. Next, we have got ceilings on land holding. The main purpose of passing 1961 Act is redistribution of the land from the rich to the poor, or from the landed owners to the landless people. So it was in the year 1961, they introduced ceilings on land holdings, means how much a person can hold a property. So if the person holded property more than the excess, then he had to, the land was being taken away by the such people. So section 63 speaks on ceiling on land. What it says, ceiling on land, again, here, no person who is not a member of a family, who has no family, otherwise is being provided, whether he is a landowner, landlord, or tenant, or mortgagee, or with possession, one capacity, means partly in one capacity, if in the land in excess of that ceiling area. See what it says, no person who is not a member of the family, means if he is a member of the family, then jointly they are holding property. If he is not a member of the family, he doesn't have a family, means he is alone, or he is a landowner, he is a mortgagee, and he is partly in the another's land, then there is a ceiling limit which is being fixed for that person. So what is the ceiling limit? The ceiling limit for a person who is not a member of the family, who has no family, or for a family shall have 10 units. Means this is a measurement. What it says, ceiling area for a person who is not a member of the family, who has no family, or for a family together, it will be 10 units that person has hold, provided if the family consists of 5 members, more than 5 members, the ceiling limit shall be 10 units plus additional 2 units for every member in excess of 5. See, there's a, you may get confused here. So what it says, how much a person can own property, that is this thing. If he is an individual, if he has no family, if he is a member of the family, means it says 10 units that person can hold. Suppose if that family has got more than 5 members, means definitely it has to be more. 5 plus 2 for every member in excess of 5. So that is, that ceiling limit will not exceed 20 units in aggregate. So minimum is 10 units, maximum is 20 units in aggregate that person is holding. The ceiling area for a person who is a tenant shall be 40 units. He will be this thing. Again, the same clause. If the tenants members are more than 5 members, so they can hold up to 40 units. In a case, the family, the ceiling area aggregate. Now say they are members of the family, and in that member, if there is a female, including the Stridhan land, if a female has got a Stridhan, so including that, every member shall have a ceiling limit with aggregate, including the Stridhan. So when it is being calculated, the extent of land which is being held by a person who is not a member of a family, but is a member of a joint family, in calculating the extent of the member joint family separately, then what it says, minimum 10 units, maximum 20 units that person can hold property. Suppose in respect of the land which is being held for private trust, so the trust in this thing, it is being taken care by the trustee, and there that person can also, in calculating this thing, what it says, extent of land which is being held by the trust for the private trust, so it will be taken into consideration as cooperative farms. So when we speak about cooperative farms, together when they are cultivating, it will be taken into consideration. So no educational, religious, charitable institution, society, trust, which is being capable of holding land property, will be sing, which will say the land is being held, the ceiling limit will be 20 units. So educational institutions, religious, charitable institutions, wherever they are being capable of holding the land, the minimum is 20 units which they can hold. So if there is a question whether the income of the land is wholly solely for the institution, whether it is a trust, whether it is a society, then from where the income is coming, so the maximum limit is 20 units. Again it says, no sugar factory shall hold land except solely for the purpose of research, seed farm, or both. Where the land is being held by sugar factory, the ceiling limit will be 50 units. So for sugar factory, the main purpose for which they are calculating is, it is for research. For seed farm, then it will be 50 units which they are going to be held. So when the question arises whether the land held by sugar factory is solely used for research, seed farm, or both, the decision will be prescribed by the authority, and whatever decision is being given by the authority will be final. So whether they have to hold the land or 50 units, or with the permission of the authority where they are running sugar factory, whether they are being allowed to hold a sugar factory plus research, it is a discretion power of the authority. So in case of the person who's holding the land, who is cultivating plantation crops, the ceiling limit of that person will depend on the authority again. So after 18th November 1961, before 24 January 1961, here there was an amendment to this particular act, and it says, the amendment, if the land is being transferred by donation to Karnataka Bhudana Yagna Board established under Karnataka Bhudana Yagna Act 1963, whether it is by sale or to the tenant, or the land is being transferred, the ceiling limit shall vary from 10 units to 50 units. So why this unit was being fixed means so that a person can hold property and there can be equal distribution of property to everybody, equal distribution of land to everybody. And we have got section 64, future acquisition of land. So on account of transfer, gift, purchase, exchange, mortgage, or by inheritance, partition, or family after the commencement of Amendment Act, here if any person, if the permission is being given by the state government, they can hold excess land. In this section, bequest includes gift which is being made on compilation of the death or on happening of an event. If the person is being gifted with a property, they can hold land in excess. So, and surplus land has to be surrendered to the state government, and then the state government will take away the excess land. So the ceiling limit from 10 to 50, it will be taken into consideration depending on whether you are an individual, you are a family, whether it is a sugar factory, whatever it is. So the excess land will be taken, has to be surrendered to the state government. And then certain lands to be deemed in excess to ceiling area. So if any person is holding the land which is being converted into another class of land, another class of land means we have got A, B and C, and from A it is being converted into B, then depending on that the excess land has to be surrendered to the government. Then we have got section 66 which says filing of declaration of holding. So every person who holds land, date on commencement of amendment has thing, says 10 acres or more of land having facility for irrigations from source of water belonging to the state government, 20 acres or more wherein they are growing paddy crop can be grown with the help of rainwater, 40 acres of more of land which is being classified wherein they have got both irrigation facility and their source of water, they shall before 31st day December 1974, they have to file the declaration of holding that they are holding that particular land and the source of water is irrigation. What they are growing on the land, every particulars have to be furnished to the Tahsildar, and this Tahsildar, he will ask to mention about the particular of all the lands, particulars of members of the family, and any other which is being prescribed. So depending on that, the land with the person will be holding the land. So that is called as a ceiling limit. So 10 acres or more, 20 acres or more, 40 acres or more, depending on how many members are there in the family. If their false declaration is being made, penalty will be imposed by the Tahsildar. So this is about the ceiling limit, which is being fixed by the state government. Then we have got an important this thing when we come to cooperative farms. Even this is this is important question which is being asked. What is this cooperative farming? Cooperative farming means where 10 or more persons of a village, 2 or more continuous village, they are holding land together either as landowners or tenants. They have a right and possession over 50 acres or more in that particular village. Means what they're doing, 2 or more landlords or 2 or more people interested like tenants, they together come and they farm, and that is called as cooperative farming. And then it can be in a particular village or the adjoining continuous villages. And then those people who are disastrous, they have to register themselves under cooperative societies in Karnataka, and after registrations they can start farming. So application for the registration, they have to give registration of cooperative farm. It will be accompanied by the extracts from the records of the rights showing the total area, the survey number, in which village they are doing. If there are more, 2 or more villages together, all those 2 or more villages together with the particulars, they are making an applications. So after application, registration of cooperative farms will be done. So this office, this is Karnataka Cooperative Societies, this thing, if they are satisfied, they will give you a certificate of registrations and they can cultivate the land. Members' land transferred to the farm. So people, this thing, when the cooperative farms have been registered, the possession of all the lands will be held by all the members, and the land will be transferred in that particular person's land, and they will be cultivating the land. If any person is not interested, they can withdraw from the membership. So consequences of registration, Karnataka Cooperative Societies Act of 1951, it makes a provisions for compulsory registration. After registration, they will be given a certificate wherein they can cultivate the lands. So they have got rights and privileges which are being given to the members. So once they are registered, they have rights and privileges to enjoy this particular rights. Then there's a contribution which is done by the members. So these cooperative members, the funds, the personal labor, the agriculture implements, the stocks, all this will be mentioned in the prescribed decision. They will be cultivating the land, and they will be liable to pay land revenue because they are cultivating the land. If at all, first there are 10 members, if at all they want to extend, add new members, again with the permission under registration, they can add more members. So concessions and facilities are being given for cooperative farmings. So facilities are given to them, reduction of land revenue, because they are cultivating together, the amount of revenue which they are liable to pay will be reduced. Secondly, reduction in exemptions of agriculture income tax. Then free technical advice will be given to them. Financial aid and grant of subsidies will be given to them. And lastly, priorities in irrigation and state irrigation works will be given to them. So for this, cooperative farm is very much important. So this is all about